open with a Gita verse about a fifth factor beyond hard work: grace. In one line, what is that fifth factor to you?
I somehow knew you will ask me about the fifth factor. Well, according to me, the fifth factor is the supreme alignment. Okay? So it's not the effort alone, it's not the surrender alone, it's both together. So if you read the shloka, what does it say? It says, Adhishthanam tatha karta karanam cha pratakvidam vividhascha pratakcheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam. Basically, it says for performing any task, for accomplishing any task, you need five factors. The place, the doer, the instruments, many kinds of effort that goes into doing it. And the fifth, very important one, this is the air support that I call, it's the daivam, grace or divine will. Now for me, that isn't magic, okay? Or it's not even an excuse for inaction. It's what happens when your effort meets something larger than your control. And what are the controls? Your timing, circumstances, other people's choices, the universe's own design. So alignment is doing your part, fully, sincerely, without attachment to the result. And then trusting the fifth factor to complete the story. That's what the fifth factor is.
You call the Vishnu Sahasranama magical and divine. Has there been a moment in your own life where you felt its power directly?
Honestly, for me, it's been magical and divine. And it's not been in one moment, It's been like a constant. Not once, but always. So when you chant the Vishnu Sahasranama regularly, what really happens is you start noticing something strange. Solutions comes to you. Paths open up in situation that felt absolutely impossible. Where logically, you couldn't see a way forward and suddenly one appears. But here's the key. You're not chanting, keeping a certain goal or a specific vision in mind, okay? Or expecting some instant magic. That's not, I think, how it works. Chanting has to be a part of your routine, almost like brushing your teeth. You do it without demanding anything specific from it. And that's exactly when you see your deepest, most sincere desires getting fulfilled. Okay? And it will just happen on its own. It will take its own time, and the methodology would be, its own, but it will happen. So I describe it as like in my previous statement as well. I said it's like a permanent air support that you'll get. You don't see it, you don't summon it in the moment, but it's always flying above you, quietly clearing the path long before you even reach the difficulty. That's what it is.
Your book maps all 27 nakshatras to 108 specific shlokas. How did you actually build that mapping? Is it inherited tradition or your own research?
Okay, this mapping, the mapping of 27 nakshatras and the specific 108 Sahasranama shloka is not something which I invented. This is basically inherited. It comes down from, I think listening to different pravachanas within my own sampradaya, which is the Madhva sampradaya, and also listening to several of the Vaishnava scholars who also belong to the other sampradayas like the Ramanujacharya. And it's like a tradition which has been passed on through pravachans and discourses by scholars and acharyas who have sort of carried this knowledge forward, often orally, across millennia. So what I basically did was to listen it carefully, study it across various different multiple pravachans and sources and organize it clearly. But then I wanted to go a step further. I wanted to make it slightly more simpler for especially people working in the corporate world. That how can they sort of imbibe the learnings of each of the shlokas of the Vishnu Sahasranama into their daily life, into their leadership? Can they imbibe? Because the meanings, if you look at each of the words, each of the names and its meaning, it's like an archetype. And archetype for what? Archetype for a typical leadership quality that one can really imbibe in themselves. So what I basically did, I said, okay, while for me it is a spiritual, devotional verse, but it should not remain the same for everyone else. So, I tried to create something which principally you could apply in your role in your workplace. Okay.
You say nakshatra is pattern, not fate. What's the simplest way to explain that difference to someone who's never heard it before?
Hmm. So, nakshatra is a pattern, okay? It's not fate. So, think of your nakshatra like the weather you were born into. It's not like your destiny, but it is just your starting climate. Some climate are naturally more energetic, some are more stable, some are more intense or harsh. It's just your pattern. How you tend to react, what you're drawn towards, where you naturally struggle, it shapes your default setting. Getting it? But this weather that you were born into, it doesn't decide what you build. Okay? Two people may be born under exactly the same nakshatra, which basically means they have the same starting energy, same tendencies, but they may end up living completely different lives. One keeps starting things and never finishing. The other channels the same energy into something real and he gets sustained success. And why is this difference? Because pattern is just the beginning. It's a starting point. What you do with it, your awareness, your discipline, your choices, that's what writes your story. Of course, as mentioned earlier, there has to be the overarching grace as well. That's extremely important.
Two people born under the same nakshatra can have completely different lives, you say. What actually makes the difference?
Yeah, we just spoke about it, right? Like two people born under the same nakshatra may lead absolutely different lives, right? And this is a concept which I actually touched upon in my earlier book, before Supreme Alignment. It's called the Supreme Cipher. And this is the concept of the guna. It's called the guna quotient in that book, okay? So, what does it mean? What are the three gunas that people have? You have the sattva, rajas, and tamas. So, just imagine that this all totals to 100, okay? So, people may have varying different degrees of each of them. So, a person may have 20% of one, 30 of the other, and 50 of the other, okay? So, somebody may have 20% sattva, 30% rajas, and about 50% of tamas. And similarly, another person may have a totally different configuration of this guna. But they are exactly born in the same nakshatra. Typically, what happens? This guna quotient combined with your own karmic debt, which you have sort of accumulated over several millennia across several lifetimes. A combination of this is what makes situations occur to you the way they occur to you. The same situation happens, but with these two people who have exactly the same nakshatra, but different guna quotients, and of course, different karmic debt that they have, it will make the same situation occur to them totally differently. And basis that, their subsequent perception, their actions, and that's what shapes their destinies. So, nakshatra gives you the pattern, karma gives you the circumstance, but your guna, that's the innermost quality, decides how the circumstance actually shows up for you and what you ultimately do with it. That's why two people with exactly the same nakshatra may end up very differently.
You rank 5 forces: pattern, karma, guna, practice, and grace from lowest to highest power. Why does grace sit at the very top?
Okay, this is my own ranking. So I ranked 5 forces from lowest to highest. Pattern, that's your nakshatra. Momentum, that's the force of karma. Quality, that's your guna. We just spoke about it. Conscious effort, that's your practice. And right at the top, you have the divine grace. Now, why does grace sit above everything else? Because see, every other force still works within certain limits, right? Your pattern shapes your tendencies, your karma shapes your circumstances that you get, your guna shapes your response, how you respond to a certain impetus. Your practice refines all of that, slowly over a period of time. But grace, it comes from the Supreme, right? So that doesn't wait for you to earn it through all these calculated measures. It doesn't operate level by level. It can dissolve karmic weight instantly. It has the power to do that. It can override a lifetime pattern in a moment. What years of disciplined effort slowly shapes, grace can transform instantly. So that's why it's not just another force on the list, it's a special force. It's a force that can override every force beneath it. That's why it's beneath. Everything else builds the ladder. Grace is something which can let you leap past it.
If grace can dissolve karma instantly, does that mean effort and discipline don't ultimately matter?
I think a great question. If grace can override everything, why take any effort? So my answer to that is no. And this is the part I think most of us and most people misunderstand the most. You know, grace being the highest force, it doesn't mean effort is optional, right? It means effort is how you position yourself to receive the grace. Let's take an example. Think of a farmer. The farmer still have to till his soil, sow the seed, water it every day. Now, whether the rain comes, when it comes, how abundant it's going to be, all that is not in his hands. Okay? So that rain is the grace. Now think of a scenario where he sits back and does nothing, waiting for the rain to come. But he has actually no field ready to receive it. Would that really help? So effort creates the readiness. Grace determines the outcome. So all that we spoke about, the pattern, karma, guna, daily practice, all that is your field in your control. You still have to work it out, discipline it, refine it every single day, right? But once you've done your part, fully, sincerely, and without actually obsessing over the result, that's when you stop straining against life and you become open enough for something greater to work through you. So basically, effort doesn't guarantee grace, but it what makes you ready for it.
For someone who doesn't know their own nakshatra, where should they even start with this book?
Okay, that's a good practical question. You know, the book actually addresses this directly, but a few starting points that I can talk about. Number one, start with I don't know my nakshatra path. It's going to really benefit you. So, what the real tradition recommends is that you chant the entire Sahasranama, all 108 shlokas. Don't worry about what's your nakshatra and, just read those 4 shlokas which are pertinent to your nakshatra. Don't worry about all of that. Chant the entire thing. At the end of the day, they are archetypes of the supreme names. Okay? That will help you to. So constant listening, constant chanting will help you to imbibe the qualities of those names into your own self, right? So there's no harm reading the entire 108 shlokas. Okay, that's your number one. So I would not recommend a kunji. The book is actually a kunji for your own personal nakshatra. But you can't pass the entire exam just by reading the kunji. That's step number one. Step number two, it's very easy. You can go to the net, type in your, some basic details, time of birth, place of birth, birth date, etc. You can get your nakshatra. And see, that'll help you to sort of focus more on a certain segment than the entire thing. But I would still recommend go with step one. Try to read the entire 108 verses. Try to chant it. Even if you don't understand the meaning, if you don't understand what every name and archetype means, it doesn't matter. Just keep chanting. Over a period of time, you'll start memorizing it and you'll see changes happening.
This is a sequel to your earlier book, The Supreme Cipher. What did readers ask you that made you feel you
Yeah. Okay, let me correct something people often assume. This wasn't like a reader-led uh, approach. I wrote the Supreme Alignment actually first, and then came the Supreme Cipher. And it actually came out of a self-audit process, my own honest reckoning with some of these ideas, and not any requests that came from their audience. So what led to the Supreme Cipher was a very different thought. Once I wrote the Supreme Alignment, I really thought the material, while it being deeply meaningful, it could feel really dense, especially for let's say younger readers who weren't necessarily going to sit with a dry philosophical structure. So I made a deliberate choice. I thought let me make it slightly more interesting, to take the same core wisdom and weave it into like a semi-fictional story which has characters, a certain narrative, and something slightly more alive. And not to dilute the depth, but to make the door wider. So someone who might never pick up a book on nakshatra and Sahasranama and the philosophy around it could easily enter through a story first. And eventually, if people like it, they would still walk away with the same essential truth.
If someone reads only one shloka from the Sahasranama today, which one would you tell them to chant and why?
So if someone asked me to choose like one shloka out of the 108, it's going to be really difficult because every shloka is beautiful. But if you really force me to do that, I will choose the one from the chapter Punarvasu Nakshatra, and shloka is shloka number 27. Punarvasu, just to give you a little background, Punarvasu means a return of light. So it's like the energy that follows a storm. It's a chapter of recovery after failure. And what makes it even more beautiful is Punarvasu is Lord Rama's own birth nakshatra. Rama himself is the one who returned after an exile, and then, to restore dharma, he ruled for a long period of time. His entire life is the living embodiment of Punarvasu. Light returning, stronger, wiser, and unshaken. So this is how the shloka goes. Asankhyeyo prameyatma vishishta shrishta kritchuchihi siddhartha siddhi sankalpaha siddhida siddhi sadhanaha. It means he is immeasurable, pure, the upholder of right conduct. His intentions unfailingly manifest, granting success and fulfillment. Now, how is this linked to, let's say, a person who's working in the corporate world from a leadership standpoint? Effectiveness isn't about strategy or effort alone. It's about clarity of intent. So when your purpose is pure, like that of Rama's return was pure, execution follows naturally. So, a word of advice for everyone: if you are beginning again today, after any setback, chant this one. You're not just reciting a verse, you're actually aligning with the very energy of Rama himself, returning stronger, restoring what was lost. All the best.